All right, strap in, everyone. We're going deep on grit today. And I don't just mean the word itself, but the whole concept. I know you've probably heard it a million times, but stick with me. Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, it really digs into this in a way that might surprise you. We're tackling that age-old debate, right? Talent versus effort. What really gets you to the top? And Duckworth, she's team effort all the way.
What's really interesting is she doesn't dismiss talent altogether. Like, she's not saying it doesn't exist. She's totally upfront that some people, yeah, they're born with a natural advantage. But, and here's the kicker, she says effort. It actually matters twice as much if you're looking at success.
Hold on, wait, twice as much? That's a pretty bold claim. Are you telling me someone with, I don't know, average talent, they could actually outperform some kind of prodigy just by working harder?
That's exactly what she's saying. She defines grit as this combination of passion and perseverance for the long haul. Think of it like talent might win you that first sprint, but grit's what gets you through the marathon, keeps you going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see why this idea is so captivating, right? It gives us this sense of, I don't know, control. We're not just stuck with whatever we're born with. But let's be honest, there are tons of people out there who are super talented and they just fizzle. So what's missing? What's that secret sauce?
That's where Duckworth's framework comes in. 4 stages, she lays it out. Interest, practice, purpose, and hope. And they build on each other, like a recipe.
All right, break it down for me. Stage 1, interest. Find your passion and you're set. Easy peasy.
It's rarely that straightforward. Duckworth, she points out that passion, it usually develops over time. It's not always this boom, lightning strike kind of thing, more like a slow burn as you explore and really engage with something.
Really? So it's not about waiting for that magical passion to just hit you. It's more about actively exploring and letting your interests, I don't know, unfold. That's a game changer, especially for those of us who feel like we haven't found our thing yet. But wait, isn't there like a whole argument for just ignoring your interests?
Cal Newport, he wrote Deep Work. He's made that case. We should focus on building valuable skills, even if they don't initially spark joy. But maybe there's a middle ground, right? Honing your skills, but in a field that at least has some appeal for you.
That's interesting. It makes you think, how do you balance the practical stuff with following your passion? Okay, on to stage 2, practice. We've all heard practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
But I get the sense Duckworth's talking about something more specific here.
Yeah, she calls it deliberate practice. And it's not just about putting in the hours mindlessly. It's setting these goals, these stretch goals that push you past your comfort zone, intense focus, getting constant feedback, and then refining your approach based on that feedback.
If you're training for a marathon, you wouldn't just, jog around the block every day. You'd have a plan. Intervals, speed work, those long runs, all designed to push you. That's deliberate practice, right?
Exactly. It's pushing your boundaries and then taking a step back. What worked, what didn't, and adjusting. And that feedback piece, that's critical.
Yeah, feedback, not always the easiest thing to take, is it? Nobody likes to hear they messed up.
Absolutely. Actually, Duckworth, she brings in some wisdom from Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen. They wrote, thanks for the feedback. They point out that even when feedback's well-intentioned, it can trigger us, makes us defensive, which makes it harder to learn.
Yeah, it's this automatic thing. Protect your ego, even if it means missing out on some valuable insight.
Yeah.
How do we get better at taking those hits?
Stone and Heen, they've got some great strategies, but that's a whole other deep dive.
Okay.
For now, let's stick with Duckworth's framework. Stage 3, this is where it gets really interesting. Purpose.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the deal with purpose?
It's about connecting your work to something bigger. Not just personal satisfaction, but aligning yourself with something meaningful, something that contributes.
Even something that seems, I don't know, ordinary data entry, let's say, it could become meaningful if you saw yourself as contributing to, I don't know, medical research, something like that.
Exactly. It's about seeing how your work, even if it seems small, how it connects. Think of, I don't know, an engineer working on the New York City subway. She's not just laying down tracks. She's connecting people, impacting how the whole city moves. Millions of people getting where they need to go. That's purpose right there.
I can feel how that would change your motivation, just thinking about it that way. But what about those of us who are, I don't know, stuck in jobs that feel completely meaningless? Can you really force purpose into something like that?
Duckworth, she actually offers some techniques for finding purpose. Even at the most, I don't know, soul-crushing roles, it might be thinking about how your work, how it benefits others, even in tiny ways. Maybe you're the one who keeps the office running smoothly so everyone else can be creative. Or maybe you find someone, a role model, someone who embodies purpose in a similar field. Or you could even try to find ways to make your work more meaningful, like taking on new challenges, suggesting new solutions.
I remember this time when I was like totally burnt out. Job felt like a dead end.
Yeah.
It was reframing my thinking that saved me. Started focusing on those little ways my work was making a difference, and it totally shifted my energy.
Perfect example how powerful a mindset shift can be. And it leads us to the final piece of Duckworth's framework, hope.
All right, so we've got interest, practice, purpose, and then hope. How does that fit in?
Hope, the way Duckworth sees it, it's this unwavering belief that you can get better, that you can overcome challenges. It's the opposite of what psychologists call learned helplessness, that feeling of being stuck, like nothing you do matters.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. It's like quicksand for your motivation.
Exactly. And Duckworth stresses that hope. It's closely tied to this growth mindset, believing that your abilities, they're not set in stone, they can be developed.
So it's not just blindly hoping for the best, it's having this rational belief that you can actually grow and learn. But how do you develop that, especially when you're facing those huge setbacks?
Duckworth, she highlights the power of praising effort, not just talent. When we focus on the process, the hard work, not just the outcome, it builds a more resilient mindset. Setbacks, they become learning experiences, not proof that you're not good enough.
That changes everything, especially for how we raise kids. Instead of always saying, you're so smart, it should be, wow, look at how you stuck with it. It teaches them their worth isn't about being perfect. It's about effort and dedication.
Exactly. It's that I can get better attitude. Now, Duckworth's book, it dives into a kind of controversial area when it comes to parenting, what she calls authoritative parenting.
Isn't that just the ideal everyone talks about? High expectations, but also warmth and support. What's so groundbreaking about that?
The interesting thing is, Duckworth, she doesn't just say it's a good idea. She links this style to kids who score higher on grit scales, meaning they're more likely to persevere and reach their goals.
So there's actual data.
Yeah.
But how does this style actually create grittier kids?
One key thing is authoritative parents, they model grit themselves. They're not just telling their kids to work hard, they're showing them. This is what it looks like to face a challenge head on.
The do as I do, not just as I say approach. And it's not just parents, right?
Yeah.
Coaches, teachers, anyone who embodies grit can have a huge impact.
Absolutely. And here's a surprise from Duckworth's research. Extracurricular activities like sports or music, they're linked to higher grit scores.
Wait, seriously? So it's not just about learning, I don't know, piano or hitting a home run. It's about building a work ethic that you can use everywhere.
Exactly. Transferable industriousness, she calls it. That work ethic you get from, I don't know, soccer practice or orchestra, it can help you in your studies, your career, anything that needs dedication.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Makes you think about those after-school activities in a whole new light. So the big takeaway here is that grit isn't set in stone. It's something we can develop.
And that's a powerful message. It means success isn't predetermined. It's within our reach if we're willing to put in the work and cultivate that grit. But here's the tricky part. Duckworth argues that even though most people agree that hard work is important, we still have this bias towards talent.
So we're more impressed by, I don't know, the Mozart, who just seems to effortlessly create masterpieces, than the musician who grinds for years to become a virtuoso.
Exactly. Naturalness bias, she calls it. We're drawn to the effortless, even though that effortlessness is usually the result of years of hidden effort, and that bias, it can make us underestimate those who might not seem naturally gifted, but they're incredibly dedicated.
It's like we're blinded by the sparkle of talent and we miss the quiet power of hard work and perseverance.
Exactly. We might overlook someone who could achieve incredible things with the right support because they don't initially seem talented. And this bias, it doesn't just affect how we see others, it can impact those who are considered talented.
Meaning they might just coast on their natural ability without putting in the effort to really excel.
Exactly. They might get scared to push themselves because they're afraid to fail and lose that talented label. And that fear of failing, it can stifle growth, keep them from reaching their full potential.
Like they're trapped in a gilded cage, afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
But isn't there also this danger that this focus on grit could lead to, I don't know, a culture of overwork?
Yeah.
Burnout. What about balance and taking care of yourself?
That's a really important point. And Duckworth, she acknowledges it. She's clear that grit isn't about pushing yourself till you drop. It's about finding a sustainable way to pursue your passions.
So it's about that sweet spot between pushing your limits and taking care of your well-being.
Exactly. It's about knowing your limits and knowing when to rest so you can come back stronger and more resilient.
That's such a crucial message, especially today when hustle culture often glorifies burnout.
Absolutely. Grit's not about sacrificing your health for achievement. It's about finding a way to thrive personally and professionally.
And that brings us to a big question, right? How do we actually challenge this bias towards talent? How do we cultivate a better appreciation for effort?
Duckworth suggests starting with language. Instead of praising someone's, I don't know, natural gifts, acknowledge the hard work they put in. Instead of, you're a natural artist, try, wow, you've really honed your skills through dedication.
So it's about shifting the focus from inherent ability to the process, the sweat and struggle behind the success.
Exactly. It's recognizing that talent is often just the starting point. It's the dedication, the effort that turns potential into achievement.
It's like that famous quote, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. But even if we change how we talk, how we think about it, how do we actually become grittier? Where do we even start?
That's where those 4 stages of grit come back in. But before we jump back into those, let's talk about mindset.
Okay, mindset. How does that fit into all this?
Duckworth, she leans heavily on Carol Dweck's work, a growth mindset. Dweck argues people either have this fixed mindset, they think abilities are set, or a growth mindset, they see abilities as something you can develop. And Duckworth, she believes this growth mindset, it's crucial for grit. When you believe you can improve through effort, you're more likely to push through challenges.
Because you see those obstacles as opportunities
Mm-hmm.
to learn and grow, not proof that you're not good enough.
Exactly. Goes back to praising effort, not just talent. It helps people become resilient, helps them believe they can get better. But this isn't just about individual mindset. Duckworth, she also talks about how a company's culture can impact grit.
So a company that values hard work and learning, they naturally create grittier employees.
Precisely. Think about the difference between, I don't know, a supportive coach who encourages you to push yourself and a boss who just wants results. Which one is more likely to foster grit?
Yeah, that's a big difference. It makes you realize we're not just individuals trying to be gritty. The environment we're in, it plays a huge role.
Absolutely. And Duckworth highlights ways organizations can build that kind of culture, that grit supporting culture. Setting clear goals that focus on growth, giving regular feedback, recognizing effort, even when it doesn't lead to immediate success.
Like creating the perfect conditions for grit to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not forget the people in those organizations. We're back to those 4 stages of grit development.
And that first stage, interest, it's all about cultivating passion. It's not always about finding your one true calling right away. It's about exploring, trying new things, seeing what sparks your curiosity.
So it's not about waiting for that lightning bolt. It's about creating those opportunities for lightning to strike.
Exactly. It's about giving yourself permission to experiment, to be a beginner, to stumble and learn. And remember, passion, it often evolves over time. What starts as a casual interest can turn into a lifelong obsession.
That's dating, right? You got to go on a few dates before you find the one.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of relationships, the second stage practice, it benefits a lot from having mentors, role models to guide and support you.
So it's not just about putting in the hours. It's about having someone show you the ropes, give you feedback, push you to get better.
Exactly. Think about having a coach at the gym. They spot you when you're lifting heavy, help you with your form, motivate you to keep going.
Yeah, that makes sense. It highlights how important it is to surround yourself with people who believe in you, who support your growth. But what about that inner critic, that voice that tells you you're not good enough, you're going to fail? How do you deal with that?
That's where the third stage, purpose, comes in. When you connect your efforts to a bigger goal, something beyond your own ambition, it can help quiet that inner critic. It fuels your motivation.
Like having a mission, a cause that's bigger than yourself. Gives you the strength to keep going, even when it's tough.
Exactly. And this purpose, it can come from all sorts of places. A social cause, a problem you want to solve, or even just wanting to make a positive impact in your own little corner of the world.
And what about that final stage, hope? How do you stay hopeful when things are rough, when you're facing setbacks?
Duckworth emphasizes developing coping mechanisms for those setbacks, breaking down big goals into smaller ones, and surrounding yourself with people who believe in you.
So it's about having a plan for when things go wrong, which they inevitably do.
Exactly. It's about anticipating those challenges and figuring out how to deal with them in a healthy way.
So it's not about avoiding setbacks altogether. It's about being ready to deal with them.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were talking about, mentors, role models. Having people in your life who've been there, they can offer guidance, help you through it.
It's like having a Sherpa guiding you through dangerous terrain. They know the path, the dangers, and they can help you get where you need to go. But what about those of us who don't have those kinds of mentors? Where do you find that guidance when you feel like you're on your own?
That's a great question, and it shows how important it is to seek out resources, communities that can offer support, books, podcasts, support groups, online communities. There are tons of ways to connect with people who are on a similar path.
It's about realizing you don't have to do it all alone.
Yeah.
There are people out there who get it, who can offer support and advice.
Exactly. And sometimes just knowing you're not alone, that can be enough to keep you going.
This is all super inspiring, but I got to be honest, I'm still a little skeptical about this whole grit thing. It sounds great, but what about the real world? What about those people who seem to just, I don't know, succeed without even trying?
That's fair, and Duckworth addresses it. She knows there are always exceptions, people who seem to break the rules and achieve success without much effort.
Like those kids who breeze through school without cracking a book and still get straight A's.
Exactly. But Duckworth argues that these cases, they're often more complex than they seem. Those effortless achievers, they might have hidden advantages like supportive families, good schools, or natural talents they've been developing for years, even if they weren't aware of it.
So it's not that they're not putting in the work. It's just that the effort is, like, invisible. We just don't see it.
Exactly. And our idea of effort is often subjective. What seems effortless to one person might be a huge struggle for someone else.
That's true. Makes you realize you can't always judge someone's effort just by looking at them.
Exactly. And it brings us back to focusing on your own journey, not comparing yourself to others.
So it's about recognizing that everyone's got their own path, and what matters is that you're putting in the effort that's right for you.
Exactly. And celebrating your own progress, no matter how small, instead of comparing yourself and feeling bad.
That's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game. But in the end, it's your own journey that counts.
And that's a really great message. It's about embracing your own path, celebrating your progress, and using your grit to create a life that's meaningful.
This has been an incredible deep dive, but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. What about the practical side of all this? How can we actually use this stuff to improve our lives, our careers, our relationships?
You're right. There's a whole other layer. We've talked about the theory, but now it's time to put it into practice.
All right, I'm ready for the next level. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to cultivate grit and achieve our goals.
We've been talking about grit on a personal level, but let's zoom out a bit. Look at how it plays out in society as a whole. This is where it gets really interesting because Duckworth's research, it raises some tough questions about fairness, about opportunity.
Okay, so we're going from personal grit to societal grit. What's the connection?
Think about it. If grit is like the key to success, then shouldn't we be making sure that everyone has an equal chance to develop it? Duckworth's work, it sparks some important conversations about how poverty, inequality, a lack of resources, how all of that can impact someone's ability to cultivate grit.
Yeah, hard work and determination are great, but what if you're starting the race 10 feet behind everyone else?
Exactly. And this is where those criticisms of the whole grit concept come in. Some people argue that focusing too much on individual grit, it distracts us from fixing those bigger systemic problems. It's like telling someone to climb a mountain, but they don't even have proper shoes, let alone a map.
Wow, yeah, that's a powerful image. So how do we balance this focus on individual grit with the fact that society isn't always fair?
It's not about picking one or the other. It's about recognizing that both are important. We need to build a society that gives everyone a fair shot at developing their grit. But at the same time, we got to empower individuals to take charge of their own growth.
So it's like leveling the playing field while also giving people the tools and the mindset to actually play the game.
Exactly. Two sides of the same coin. We need to address the systemic issues, like poverty and discrimination. And we need to give people access to good education, mentors, resources that support growth.
It's like building a strong ladder and then, teaching people how to climb it.
Great analogy. And this brings us back to culture. Duckworth, she highlights cultures that value hard work, perseverance, a belief in effort. She says those cultures are more likely to produce successful individuals.
So it's not just about individual effort. It's about being in an environment that values and supports that effort.
Exactly. Think of, I don't know, a sports team, a winning team. It's not just about having talented players. It's about the coach, the support system, that shared belief that they can achieve something great together.
That makes me think about the importance of role models, mentors, people who embody grit, who can show us what's possible. But there's another piece to this whole grit puzzle, isn't there? What about happiness? Are gritty people actually happy people?
That's a great question. And it's one that Duckworth spends a lot of time on. She gets it, relentlessly chasing goals. Even if you're passionate, it can be hard, demanding. It doesn't always equal happiness in the traditional sense.
So it's not about reaching this blissful state of euphoria.
No, it's not about avoiding discomfort, avoiding the struggle. Actually, Duckworth says that grit is often linked to what psychologists call eudaimonic well-being.
Eudaimonic well-being, that sounds intense.
It's about finding meaning, fulfillment in a life of purpose. It's that deep satisfaction you get from living according to your values, from trying to make a positive impact.
So it's not about chasing pleasure or comfort. It's about finding joy in the struggle, in pursuing something meaningful.
Exactly. It's about embracing the whole journey with the ups and the downs, knowing that it's taking you somewhere important.
I like that. It makes you think about happiness differently. Maybe it's not this constant state of bliss. Maybe it comes from those moments of struggle, from overcoming something and achieving something meaningful. But how do we actually get there? How do we develop that kind of grit?
Remember those 4 stages: interest, practice, purpose, and hope. They're not just ideas, they're tools we can use to actually cultivate our grit.
Okay, let's go back to those stages then. But this time, let's focus on how we can use them. Starting with interest. It's not always about having that aha moment, right? Sometimes it's about setting the stage for that moment to happen.
Exactly. It's about exploring your interests, trying new things, seeing what grabs you. And remember, passion, it often grows over time. What starts as just an interest, it can turn into something you're obsessed with, the right nurturing, of course.
So it's not about forcing yourself to be passionate. It's about creating the right environment for passion to grow.
Precisely. It's about being open to being surprised, discovering new things, letting your passions unfold.
Okay, stage 1, it's all about building that inner drive, that spark that'll keep you going. What about stage 2? Practice. We've all heard practice makes perfect, but Duckworth seems to be talking about something more specific.
You're right. She calls it deliberate practice. It's not just about putting in the hours mindlessly. It's about setting goals, focusing, getting feedback, and constantly trying to improve.
Like having a training plan, like a roadmap to get better.
Exactly. Think about training for a marathon. You wouldn't just jog around the block and expect to finish the race. You need a plan. Intervals, speed work, long runs, all designed to push you to help you improve.
It makes me realize that a lot of what we call practice, it's really just going through the motions. We're not really pushing ourselves. We're not asking for feedback. We're not really trying to get better.
And that's the difference between just doing something and truly mastering it. Deliberate practice. It's about being intentional, about focusing on your weaknesses, about always striving to improve.
So it's not just about the time you put in. It's about the quality of that time.
Precisely. It's about making every minute count.
Okay, so stage 2, it builds on that foundation of interest. You figured out your passion, and now you're actively working on it, pushing yourself. But what about stage 3? Purpose. We talked about connecting your work to something bigger, but how do you actually find that purpose?
That's a great question. And it often takes some soul searching. Sometimes your purpose is crystal clear. It's something you've always been passionate about. But other times it takes more exploring, more experimenting.
So it's not always like a light bulb moment. It's more about actively looking for experiences that fit with your values and interests.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself those tough questions. What are you good at? What do you care about? What kind of impact do you want to have? And it's about being open to new things. Sometimes your purpose finds you when you least expect it.
Makes me think about all those times I felt lost in my work. Like I was just, I don't know, going through the motions.
Yeah.
Maybe what was missing was that sense of purpose, that feeling of being connected to something bigger. But how do you find that purpose when you're stuck, when you're feeling disillusioned?
One way is to think about your values. What do you believe in? What matters to you? And how can you make your work reflect those values?
So it's about making your work a reflection of who you are, what you care about.
Exactly. And it's about realizing that purpose doesn't have to be this grand world-changing thing. It can be in the small things, how you treat people, the care you put into your work, the impact you have on those around you.
That's good to hear. It means that purpose isn't just for a lucky few. It's for everyone. no matter what you do. But what about when you hit those roadblocks? When you're feeling discouraged, tempted to give up? That's where hope comes in, right?
Exactly. Hope is what keeps you going when things get tough. It's believing that you can overcome challenges, that you can keep going even when you face setbacks.
But how do you find hope when you're feeling hopeless, when it feels like everything's going wrong?
Duckworth, she suggests a few things. One is to focus on your wins, the small wins. Celebrate your progress, even if it seems small.
So it's about recognizing those little victories, those moments when you overcome something or achieve a small goal.
Exactly. Those small wins, they build momentum, they boost your confidence, they remind you that you're making progress, even when the bigger picture seems overwhelming.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's those small steps that get you there, right? But what about when you stumble, when you make a mistake, when it feels like you've taken a step back? How do you deal with that without losing hope?
That's where the growth mindset comes in again. When you believe that your abilities, they're not fixed, that you can develop them through effort, you start to see setbacks as opportunities to learn, not as failures.
So it's about changing how you look at it, seeing those setbacks as feedback,
Yeah.
something that can help you improve.
Exactly. And it's about having ways to cope with those setbacks.
Like having a plan for when things go wrong.
Exactly. It's about knowing that challenges will come up and having strategies for dealing with them in a healthy way.
So it's not about avoiding setbacks, it's about being prepared to handle them.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were talking about before, mentors, role models, having people in your life who've been through similar things, they can give you advice and support.
Like having a guide leading you through the tough parts. They know the way and they can help you navigate it. But what about people who don't have those kinds of mentors? How do they find that support when they feel like they're on their own?
That's a really good point, and it shows how important it is to find resources, communities that can offer that support. There are books, podcasts, support groups, online communities, lots of ways to connect with people who are going through the same thing.
It's about realizing you don't have to do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
That there are people out there who understand, who can offer encouragement.
Exactly. And sometimes just knowing you're not alone, that can be enough to give you that hope you need to keep going.
Okay, so we've covered so much on this grit journey, the 4 stages, societal stuff, even how it connects to happiness. It's amazing how one concept can be, I don't know, complex.
And now it's time to get practical. We've talked about what grit is, why it matters, but now let's talk about how. How do we actually use this stuff to build more grit in our own lives?
Because knowing about it is one thing, but actually putting it into practice, that's a whole other challenge. So where do we even start?
Duckworth, she gives us some concrete strategies. A lot of them echo what we've been talking about, but let's go deeper. Let's see how they work in real life.
Okay, I'm ready to get my hands dirty. Give me those strategies.
First up, let's go back to growth mindset. We've talked about it a lot, but it's so important, that belief that your abilities, they're not fixed. They can be developed. That's the foundation of grit.
It's like upgrading your mental software.
Yeah.
Right, from fixed to growth.
Yeah.
Suddenly you can handle bigger challenges. But how do you actually make that switch?
It starts with paying attention to how you talk to yourself. When you hit a wall, do you think, I'm just bad at this, or I need to find a better way? Noticing those fixed mindset thoughts and changing them, that's key.
So it's about being aware of those limiting beliefs
Yeah.
and replacing them with something more positive.
Exactly. And it's not about pretending you don't have weaknesses. It's about seeing them as areas where you can grow, as challenges to embrace.
This makes me think about feedback. You said how important it is for deliberate practice, but it can also help with building that growth mindset.
Right, absolutely. Feedback, even the tough kind, it's like fertilizer for growth, helps you pinpoint those areas where you can improve, but you got to be active about it. Don't just sit there and take it. Seek it out and then use it to get better.
So it's about being proactive, asking, how can I improve, not why am I not good enough?
Exactly. And find those people who give good feedback, the ones who believe in you, who want to see you succeed.
Okay, so growth mindset, check. Feedback, check. What's next on this grit building list?
Remember transferable industriousness, that idea that the work ethic you build in one area, it can help you in others. Duckworth, she suggests, looking for those challenging experiences, the ones that build grit.
So volunteering for a tough project at work, even if it means late nights, or running a marathon when the furthest you've run is like a 5K.
Exactly. It's about pushing yourself, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, showing yourself that you can do more than you think. And the cool thing is, As you build that grit muscle in one area, it makes you stronger everywhere.
Like cross-training for life.
Yeah.
You start lifting weights, and that strength and endurance, it helps you with everything. Playing with your kids, tackling those DIY projects around the house. But let's be honest, sometimes even when you're trying your best, you hit a wall, motivation dips, you start doubting yourself, and that inner critic chimes in with, just give up. What do you do then?
That's when your purpose becomes so important. Remember that engineer working on the subway, her work, it wasn't just a job, it was about connecting people, keeping the city moving, tapping into that bigger picture. Even if it's just seeing how your work helps your team or helps a client, that can re-energize you.
It's like those days when you're dragging yourself to work, but then you remember that presentation you're giving, the one that could really make a difference for someone. Suddenly, you're focused, you're ready to go.
Exactly. Purpose, it's powerful. It helps you get through those rough patches. But it's not always easy to find, especially if you're in a job that doesn't feel meaningful.
So what do you do?
Mm.
Just quit and hope you stumble into your dream job.
It's not always about finding that perfect job. It's about finding purpose in what you're already doing. Remember those techniques Duckworth talks about for finding meaning in even the most boring jobs? Maybe it's about changing how you see it, focusing on how your work helps others, even in small ways, or looking for chances to make your work more meaningful, taking on new challenges, finding creative solutions.
So it's about taking charge, not waiting for purpose to just show up, but actively looking for it, creating it.
Exactly. And sometimes that might mean making a change. Maybe you switch careers or take on a new role or even start a side project that you're passionate about. But it's not always about these big changes. Sometimes it's about finding those little bits of purpose in what you're already doing.
I like that. It's a good reminder that we have more control than we think. But let's not forget about community. We talked about how important it is to surround yourself with gritty people.
Yeah.
But how do you actually build those relationships?
It's not just about finding people who are already super gritty. It's about finding people who are on a similar path, people who share your values, who support you.
So like those friends who cheer you on when you're taking on something new and who are there for you when you're struggling.
Exactly. And it's not just about getting support, it's about giving it too. Being part of a community where you can both give and receive encouragement. That's really important.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders, but also being on the cheerleading squad, right? You're both giving and getting that boost of energy. But what about when even your best friends can't pull you out of a funk? What about those times when you're just feeling down on yourself, discouraged?
That's when gratitude can be so powerful. Remember, Duckworth talks about how gratitude can help fight those negative feelings. It's about focusing on what you have, not what you don't have, not what's going wrong.
It's like those days when you're feeling totally stressed, but then you stop and you notice, I don't know, the sunshine or a good cup of coffee, a hug from someone you love. And suddenly, things don't seem so bad.
Exactly. Gratitude, it helps you shift your perspective, helps you see things differently, helps you find the good, even when things are tough.
Right.
And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. You train your brain to focus on the positive, and you become more resilient.
So it's like building up your mental immune system, so to speak.
Exactly. And the best part is gratitude. It's something we can all do. No matter what's going on in our life, there's always something to be grateful for, even when things are really hard.
That's really encouraging. It means that even when we're feeling lost or discouraged, we have the power to choose gratitude, to choose hope, to choose to keep going.
And that's what grit is all about. Choosing passion over apathy, choosing to keep going instead of giving up, choosing to find meaning in what you do.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself, even when it's tough.
And it's about using that grit to make a difference in the world.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Angela Duckworth's grit, I'm feeling, I don't know, excited, but also there's a lot of work to do. Excited about the potential we all have to build our grit and achieve our goals, and that responsibility to use that grit to make a difference, to leave the world a little better than we found it.
It's not just about personal ambition. It's about using your passion and perseverance to contribute to something bigger.
It's about leaving a legacy of effort, of resilience, of hope.
And that's a legacy worth fighting for.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into grit. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring. And remember, this is just the beginning. The real work starts now. Yeah. And the choices we make every day, the challenges we take on, and in the commitment we bring to our passions and our purpose.
Go out there and be gritty.